What's up, guys? It's American Archer here. Thank you for tuning in. Nikki Haley is done. Finito. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with it, but she has been in a downward spiral for the last couple months, and I don't think any of us really ever thought that she had a chance against our former president, Donald Trump. And the only people who have really been supporting her are CNN, MSNBC, the mainstream media, including Fox News up until recently. And it made you kind of raise your eyebrows. Why is Fox News pushing and propping Nikki Haley? And most of us understand the connection between the mainstream media outlets. It is what it is. So you saw in the thumbnail, Bill Hemmer, he absolutely let her have that. So we're going to get into that and a couple other things. But again, I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. It's the first video, first channel. We're going to make things happen this year. And I hope that I can become a trusted name in news for you all. And I hope that, we're going to put out some enjoyable content. And I won't take any more of your time. We're going to get into this. First, we're going to look at Bill Hemmer with Fox News. Last week, she made an appearance, and he let her have it. And facts matter. Facts hurt. And, yeah, he let her have it, though. And it was a beautiful thing to see. Let's get it up here.
I think that was the quote you gave. Coming out of New Hampshire, he won 74% of Republicans. To date, 109 counties have voted, and you've won 2, and one of those by a single vote. When do you start winning Republicans?
Well, first of all, I will win Republicans, but guess who else I win? I win moderates and I win independents, which he does not. That is why he lost in 2018. That's why he lost in 2020. That's why he lost in 2022. And that's why in every poll you see, he loses to Joe Biden and I win. This is the issue of you can't win a presidential election without moderates and independents. I can get the support of Republicans, moderates, and independents. I will do that. The thing is, you look at the fact I didn't get 0 delegates. I've got 17 delegates. We moved 25 points in New Hampshire in the last 3 weeks of that race. We're going to continue to move in South Carolina. And so, look, we moved from 2% to 20% in Iowa. We moved up 25% in New Hampshire. We're going to do even better than that in South Carolina.
Just with the schedule coming up, you're not really competing in Nevada, and you got Michigan, Idaho, and North Dakota. There are 16 states that vote on March 5th. That's Super Tuesday. Which of those 16 will you win?
We're going to try and push for all of them. We're going to do everything and anything we can. But right now, our focus is on South Carolina. We've always taken it one state at a time. We're going to keep doing that. But look, Americans are coming on board with us. Everything that he does to talk about himself makes everybody realize we've got to be talking about America. We've got kids who only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. We've got a border that's absolutely out of control. We've got wars around the world, and we've got to prevent our men and women that are in harm's way from getting hurt. There's some serious issues. The last thing we need.
You see, I mean, it's copium to the 10th degree. She's been losing in record margins, and Donald Trump has been winning by record margins with record voter turnout, and all of these legal cases and Trump being a criminal and interfering in the election and just the million things that they have accused him of, that he hasn't been convicted of anything. It just continues to add up, and it bolsters Donald Trump's support, not hurts it. We've seen his polls go up every single time they've brought new charges. And Nikki Haley now, thankfully, Fox News, which unfortunately has a massive hand or a massive impact on its viewers. For those who, people, there's a lot of people out there who just watch the news and they don't do any of their own research. So it's interesting. They're starting to turn on her, or they have, and it's only a matter of time. The main reason Nikki Haley, in my opinion, and a lot of others, is that she is trying to stay in the election in the event Donald Trump gets removed from the ballot or goes to prison. So, it is what it is. But when you see Nikki Haley staying in the race after Iowa, when she said it was a 2-person race when she placed 3rd, and Donald Trump beat her by 32 points, a record margin in a snowstorm, an Arctic Circle type snowstorm and a ton of snow, 20 degree below zero, I believe. She won one county. She won one county in New Hampshire. So it's record blowouts. And then in New Hampshire, when Donald Trump won, that also set a precedent where if we look at American history, there's never been a person who won both New Hampshire and Iowa's primaries and ended up losing the nomination. So barring any extrajudicial is what we'll call it, actions or rulings, and Donald Trump making it to the finish line, he will be the Republican nominee. So we go further than that. And what we've been seeing is the media and Democrats telling people to get out and vote their viewers. And so we are seeing the mobilization in these open election states. New Hampshire's not quite open, but at the same time, people have been voting in New Hampshire for a long time. Democrats have been telling people to go vote who are Democrats, who aren't necessarily registered as Democrats, but they're classified as independents or undecided. They're Democrats. And if you look at the numbers, there was a poll or a survey done in New Hampshire for party ID and voters, and I'll put it up here. Democrats comprised of 6% of the total respondents here in New Hampshire, so not a ton, but they planned to vote. Nikki Haley got 84% of those. 6% were for Donald Trump. Nikki Haley is a Democrat plant. You look at the things we're going to look at in this video, you hear the things she says, there's really not much of a question about it. And then the questionable donors that she has, Reid Hoffman, for example, and military-industrial complex, defense, or organizations in defense, their millions of dollars are getting funneled to Nikki Haley. So Republicans made up 49% of the respondents in this survey. Donald Trump won 74% of those. Nikki Haley got 25%. If that's not an indication as to where the Republican Party, which is just solidified in favor of Donald Trump, and that number is what matters, but the shocking thing is the independent number. 45% of the respondents were independents or self-identified independents. A lot of those were Democrats. And we don't know exactly how many, but between independents and undecideds, that was 45% of the respondents, and Nikki Haley got 61% of those to Donald Trump's 37%. Donald Trump won by 11 percentage points in New Hampshire, which was a record. It's unheard of, including the fact that Nikki Haley had known Democrat voters vote for her. There's just no shot. And what a lot of people are saying, which I agree with, is that this Republican primary is actually the election. Because if Nikki Haley wins, Nikki Haley becomes the president. I don't think there's any question about that. If Donald Trump wins, he should win the general election. If you look at the numbers, I mean, he's winning in basically every category, and Democrats' support from the black community, black Americans, are now, I think it's at 71% are going to vote for Joe Biden. That sounds like a lot. What that really means is no Democrat has ever won the presidential election with less than 80% black support. So that's huge. At any rate, Nikki Haley's still in the race. She went in after the results were in and they called it for Donald Trump. She had her speech, and she said, she basically gave a victory speech. I mean, it was comical. Donald Trump ripped her up for that. But at any rate, if we look at her other actions, and this is Nikki Haley's other actions, we can see here a trend of flip-flopping, for one, because donors tell her to say one thing, and then she lies about it when she says she didn't say it. We have that on tape. But if you look at the other things that she does, for example, the E. Jean Haley ruling, Donald Trump is to pay $83 million in damages in the defamation case, which is ridiculous, and there's no proof that he ever had any genuine and serious wrongdoing in that situation. Nikki Haley came out when she was on MSNBC. She came out and said, here you go, check it out.
The jury has now ruled. They have found him liable of sexual abuse. Do you not trust the jury and their findings, Ambassador?
I absolutely trust the jury, and I think that they made their decision based on the evidence. I just don't think that should take him off the ballot. I think the American people...
Yeah. So essentially what we have here is she saved face at the end because she doesn't want the fascistic/communistic move to remove him from the ballot. But she doesn't... A real Republican, no matter if you're in a presidential campaign or not, or during this process, you need to side with when you decide with law and order. You can't side with kangaroo court, banana republic type political witch hunt, weaponizing of the justice system. You cannot allow that. So her taking that side, that's questionable to say the least. So we move forward and we start to see people are really calling Nikki Haley out in the public. So she was at a rally. This was 3 days ago. She had a rally, and one of her supporters, or actually I shouldn't say it's her supporter, somebody in the audience at her rally went to work on her. Let's see here. Check this out too.
Only way we will get that done. None of us want new wars. None of us want new wars.
She doesn't know what to do. This chick, he's 25. She says, no new wars. We don't want new wars. That's BS, and I'll tell you why. So Nikki Haley, if you're not familiar, was the UN. Surely you know that she was the ambassador to the UN for the United States in the Trump administration. She steps down, and we'll figure out why she stepped down more than likely here in a minute. But she steps down or leaves her post, I should say, is the ambassador to the UN. Immediately after, gets a position on the board of directors, Boeing's board of directors, $300,000 a year in salary or in cash and stocks, still having up to $250,000 in Boeing stock. Now, okay, she worked there, former ambassador to the UN. You start to question and you start to connect the dots, and even the most benevolent person could be taken advantage of, or take advantage of that post, having her prior knowledge and prior foreign relationships. So if you look at her income from that period of time, and you look at what her net worth, so to speak, was back in 2017, she had $15,000 in a bank account to her name at that point in time, and up to $1 million in debt, to now having what this website claims is a sizable fortune. Like, we can really dispute that. Over the last year, her and her husband reported a vast investment stock portfolio of $12 million in income. So moving on down, her massive estate up to $5 million is what it's worth. Along the way, Haley became wealthy in large part due to her ties to a network of defense interests and hawkish advocacy organizations tied to U.S. and Israeli intelligence officials. Here's where it starts to get a little tricky. So Haley, and this could be current, but Haley also works as a consultant to Prism Global Management, which is a New York investment fund managed and ran by Richard Kang, where she earned $708,000. She also served... Richard Kang serves as an advisor to the America's Frontier Fund. Now, that It's backed by former Google chief executive Eric Schmidt, run day-to-day by Gilman Louie, the former head of In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's venture capital arm. So last year, the launch event for the fund, participant openly discussed the fact that America's Frontier Fund, remember that one, is investing strategically in choke points in case of war. In China and Taiwan, in the event war broke out, which would end 10 times that portfolio overnight. So what we're saying here is Nikki Haley has a vested interest in defense companies, vested interest in war. This is the military-industrial complex we're talking about, and it's not a secret. So here you go. I don't know, personally, I don't know anyone who has ever started a defense company that's in defense. I don't know anyone who's ever started or runs a defense contracting firm. So Nikki Haley, foreign relations, affiliation with Boeing and Shirley Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Her husband starts a defense contracting firm and earns up to $500,000 from a company called Allied Defense. Now, you start to look at all of this and you start to think, well, this person could become our president, who would stand to profit tremendously from war breaking out and already has profited tremendously from war in Israel. And notice all the connections to Israel that we're seeing, but Israel, Ukraine, the Middle East, these things are profitable. The war and production of military equipment, it stands to be questioned, in my opinion. So lastly, we're going to get into Matt Wallace's post here. This was about a week ago. Matt Wallace said he had evidence, essentially a black swan event for Nikki Haley. And he said, this is information. He posted the day before this. I have information that should put Nikki Haley away for 5 years. I am telling her or suggesting that she step down so that this process will go easier for her. Okay. Well, according to Matt Wallace, in 2018, while ambassador to the UN under the Trump administration, it's reported that Nikki Haley advocated far harder than anybody else on letting the Israeli government sell over $500 million in fighter jets to Croatia. Those same fighter jets were the ones that the U.S. taxpayer donated to Israel for defense purposes. So, evidently, Nikki Haley is the one that came up with the plan. And she also said in December of 2018 that there was a yet-to-be-unveiled deal of the century coming. And I don't see that would be a deal of the century for her defense contractors, maybe her husband, and Lockheed, the military folks. However, she was forced. I say she was forced, but she stepped down from her position as ambassador to the UN 2 weeks later. So what we have is Nikki Haley brokering an arms deal from the U.S. taxpayer, giving defense capabilities, defense equipment to Israel, brokering an arms deal from Israel to to Croatia, and just know that there's also a ton of money in selling national secrets, top secret defense information. You see, despite Nikki Haley continues to stand 100% with the Israeli military, and even went so far as to unequivocally justify it in 2017 when the Israeli military killed 50 Palestinians who the UN Middle East convoy said were just innocent protesters. True or not, it absolutely should be investigated further, but she doesn't care. Now here's what matters. Unfortunately, many rumors are circulating that the Israeli government is behind many of the worst leaks of top secret military information to China, and that they have profited billions from it, with huge kickbacks to the U.S. officials who helped facilitate. So we see this all the time, with accountability never being served to politicians who are connected, who are essentially the face of a more sinister organization, so to speak. Will we see accountability? It's hard to say. If this information is corroborated and can be verified, it's going to be really bad for Nikki Haley if we could get a judge to hear the case. So, yeah, that's what I got for you guys. There's going to be more Nikki Haley blunders in the near future. We'll be covering it all. Thank you again for tuning in. I know this is the first video, I know it might be imperfect. The studio doesn't look great, surely. The lighting's probably just okay. But I'm figuring it out. We'll continue to grow. We'll continue to grow together, and it'll improve. I'll get better at these things. So if you like the video, like and subscribe. I'll be uploading content at least a couple times a week, and I'll be improving each time. So thank you for your time, and let's go win 2024. We really do need to save our nation. Peace.